Okay, so look at the one on my right, your left first. One of the problems, right from the get-go is where do you start? You think about it, everybody's worried about their service lines, their pipes. And that's our main focus right now. It's not the only focus. It's not going to ever be the only focus, but for right now it's our main focus. And that is, do you have a lead pipe going from the city main to the curb box, which is, what do we call that? We call it a tree lawn in Lansing, but we call it a green belt here, I think. Parkway, that's the one. That's what I was looking for. Parkway here. And right there you've got your curb stop, which is that little valve you see where the city wants to turn your water off. And then you've got, but underneath that is a junction box. It's not the valve at the street, it's the junction box underneath. And in essence, it's a connection between two pipes. The one that the city owns from the main to that point, and then the one that you, the resident, owns from that point into your house that sort of terminates at the water meter. So that's our first concern. We thought that we had a lot of lead lines there, but we really don't know from the, and still don't know from the city records, how many lines we have that are lead. The best we can tell from looking at either the Water Services Department, looking at property records that other forms of city development had, looking at whatever records we can find, somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 lines that are left. The problem is, there are at least 10 or 11,000 lines that are unknown. You know, what happened is maybe a builder didn't pull a permit, maybe you had a contractor come out and he didn't bother to put on the permit what type of line it was, if there was a change in that line. But we've got a lot of unknowns out there, and that's not stymied us, but it certainly slowed us down from the beginning. Then a lot of people use galvanized pipe between that point, the junction box there in the green belt. No, wait a minute. Parkway, I'll get it yet. From the parkway into the house itself. And as it turns out, as we got into this, that's the worst combination there is. If there's lead on the city side, and then you have a galvanized line coming into your house. Galvanized form of steel, it rusts, or as the chemist would say, it corrodes as it becomes oxidized. And as a result of that, you know, the surface area becomes greater. You know, that you see that flaking inside the pipe, and that flaking is the surface area increasing. And as it increases, of course, that's just more surface area. For the lead, which is sort of leaching out, you know, with the corrosivity of the water, just 2 years ago, it leaches out and then it attaches itself to the galvanized part of the pipe. So it's just as significant or more significant to take out that galvanized pipe than it is to take the lead pipe. Got to remove them both. So pretty much what I've told, and I'm jumping ahead a little in my presentation, but what I've told the crews out there, told my guys, if it's lead to anything other than copper, we're replacing both of them. If it's copper, we're going to be okay. We're just going to flush it out, and we're going to let the EPA's orthophosphate coating work, and we should be okay. But if it's anything else, we want to remove both of them. So the idea, though, is we've got to find where those pipes are, and then you got to figure out where you're going to start. So our criteria, as we work through this, our criteria were, where do we have the greatest concentration of children under the age of 6? You know, there's a great susceptibility of children to lead poisoning, as you all know, unfortunately, at this point. The greatest concentration of senior citizens, those over 65, and to get that data, we used the 2014 census data. We looked at all of the water sampling data. We weren't looking at individual homes. We're looking at areas where we have a concentration of sampling data that showed lead in the home. So your neighbor may not, or you may not have any water found in your water sampling, and that's a good thing, but we may be doing it anyway because in that area we've got a lot of water samples that are coming in. Let's see, what other criteria we were using? Those are the main ones. We also were just looking at the concentration of the types of pipes themselves. Some, you know, think about it, in the history of Flint, there was growth spurts in building, probably tied to either after World War I or after World War II, because most of the homes that we see that have lead pipes were either built in the 1920s or built mid to late 1940s. So those were the areas that we concentrated on. And if you look at this map up here behind me, you can't see the inset down at the bottom, but you can see the color codes to it. The brightest red is where we've got what we call our hot spots, and that's where you have the greatest combination of those factors. And if you can see up close to the map, then you'll see that there are different homes there. Those aren't all the homes in the city of Flint. Those are all the homes in the city of Flint that either have lead or galvanized or an unknown surface line. So if you've got copper, you may look and figure out where your home is, and it's not on there because we're just concentrating in on those homes where either we don't know what it is or we do know and it's lead or galvanized. So between those two, then we're sort of building out the areas where we wanted to work first. And that was sort of the cross hatches that we put up there then. Looking at this map, on my right, your left first, that's all the areas that we think we can do with the $27 million that we have to work with. So the city of Flint was given $2 million in reimbursement from the state of Michigan. That $2 million had been spent by the city to buy water back in October 2015. So it was a reimbursement back when things started here. And then there's the $25 million is a grant that the city is just in the process of receiving. So we've broken this up into phases. You probably heard me use that phrase, or somebody used that phrase, or read it in the newspaper. We're working on phase 2 right now. Phase 2 is spending the $2 million. So I'm working over this other map on my left, your right, and on this map, as you can see, we got a little blue area right here. This is Colorado, Arizona, Utah, Wyoming. We've got a little area over here, and then we've got an area down here, Durand, Becker, Boston. Those are the 3 areas that we're able to do with the $2 million. It doesn't go far when it costs $5,000 or $6,000 a line. But that's what we're doing currently. And between those 3 small areas, just starting about 2 weeks ago, 15 days ago, we've been able to, so far we've completed almost 80 homes with another 14 homes to be done today. My goal, which I say to these contractors, and they don't like it too much, but I want them to do 10 to 14 homes a day. But remember, $2 million costs around $5,000 to $6,000 per home. We can't do too many of that, right? That's 250 homes at the most. And that's what we did with this what I call phase 2. The first phase having been the one that the DEQ did with Rowe Engineering back in April when they did the 30 for 30. So far we've already done almost 80, about 78, not including the ones that we've done today, which should be another 14. And that should be done by the end of September. So our construction season is going to end at some point. You know, you can only put asphalt onto the ground on the streets until about November 15th. Maybe we can push it back closer to Thanksgiving. It always seems to be November 15th, which is like the start of deer hunting season. I think there's a connection with the construction crew, so they don't admit it. But we're hoping to push them back a little bit. And that's the areas that we have for the RFP that went out last week. Bids are due a week from tomorrow. We want to have it back to City Council for approval with 3 contracts by the 26th. So less than 2 weeks. Actually, just a week from Monday, we'll be back to City Council. And that's for the areas that we have in purple here. Again, you can see this is a new area. All the other 3 are sort of extensions from the areas that we have over there for the hot spots. But if you look at how we mark these areas out, and then you look here, these are the blue is phase 2 that we're doing now, the purple is phase 3 that we're going to get to. Everything that's in pink shaded here or shaded on that map are the areas that we hope to do with the $25 million. Now, you can also see that's only half the city at best. And know that. Our goal, obviously, is to do the entire city. So there are a couple things that we're doing at the same time. One is that we have a separate contract to do what's called hydrovac. You know, you got that big old machine out there, and it sort of injects water down and it sucks it up, and it is a less intrusive than using a shovel, a less intrusive way to dig in at that curb box. And we want to do that about 200 sites or more, all over, to start with, all over the city, to find out exactly whether or not it is in fact lead to galvanized, or whether or not it's lead to copper, copper to copper, so we have some better analyses. Even though we say these are the hot spots, and it's based upon, among other things, the concentrations of lead or galvanized lines, don't know for certain because our records are incomplete. There is a certain amount of assumptions that have gone in there, and I'll admit it to you right up front. We've got two really smart guys from the University of Michigan, two professors in computer science. They're doing some big data, they're doing these algorithms, and they sort of helped us get those areas, but they also want more data, and that's why we're doing the hydrovacking at 200 spots. Yet this fall to find out exactly where we need to be working. So, bottom line is, yet this year, the blue and the purple is probably all we're going to get done this calendar year, but we want to have it teed up to do the rest of this in 2017. We're also out there, the mayor is in Washington, D.C., talking to our congressional delegation. We know we need more money. We know it's got to come from the feds because they haven't pitched in anything for this yet. And if they do so, we'll be set to do the rest of this. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my plans on this that are not solidified yet. Things that I'm still working on. Number one is, as I said before, I can't guarantee to you that if we replace your service line between the city main and your water meter, that that's going to take care of the entire problem. You've got lines inside your house. Those lines may also be galvanized. Those lines may also have lead flecked in them during this period of corrosivity. So one of the things that the city staff are working really hard on is getting a grant with HUD under the Community Development Block Grants. We want to be able to have the funds to go in and do what we call a lead survey or a lead assessment inside the house. Basically, go into the home. Can we see lead pipes or can we see galvanized pipes hanging out in your basement? What I'd really like to do is do that at the same time that we're coming in there to replace your service line. So we're not continuously intruding into your lives, knocking on your door time after time. I know some of you are already sick of that, and I don't blame you. So I want to get that coordinated. So when the plumber comes in to do the service lines yet this fall, though, we're keeping track of what kind of lines you have in your basement. They may ask you questions about what's going on in your basement. We're keeping that in a database. The lady from the EPA said we're keeping that by address only, and we're not giving out specific addresses. When we talk about this, we talk about the neighborhoods. We're going to be in this neighborhood bounded by these streets at one time. So we want to be able to go in the house and at least do this lead survey or lead assessment and say, do we got pipes? Do we have paint? Do we have soils in the area? And we hope, depending upon the amount of funds, the city asked for $100 million. We don't know yet, but depending on the amount of funds that we get, then we'd like to replace some of the pipes within the homes as well. Again, I can't say it's the same criteria. I don't know how many we'll be able to do. It's dependent upon the funds that we get. We'll have to make another decision on how we determine those criteria. I don't know that at this time yet. The other thing is we want to replace water meters. Most of the water meters are so old, they're not working well anymore, if at all. It's a loss to the city. We're sort of guessing as to how much water is being used, how much water may be lost. And for the city to move forward, we have to have answers on that. So we want to be able to do that, and we are doing that at the same time. One last area I want to talk about before I take your questions, and that is when the crews come out, there's a couple things that are really important. Number one, you got to have somebody there the whole time. I know this can be a hardship because you got to work, you got kids to take care of and everything else, but I'm not comfortable having a crew at your house unless somebody, over the age of 18 is there the whole time. So I've told them if the homeowner leaves, has to run errands or whatever, or the tenant, whichever it may be, you got to go to the next house. You can't stay there working if nobody's home, and it's for your own good as well, because I don't want the contractor to be the only one in your house. Secondly, know that your water is going to be turned off for a period of time. It'll probably be about 4 hours because that's our goal, to get all these done in less than 4 hours. If there's there's some sort of issue. The line is not where we think it is. It goes to a neighbor, across somebody else's, a neighbor's yard, goes to a different street. It takes longer to fix that line, sometimes to find the line if it's underneath the driveway, for example. So it could be as much as 24 hours that your water is turned off. And the third issue, one that's really, really important, is after we're done, you've got to run your water for at least 15 minutes, and want to run it for 15 minutes from every tap you got. Because your lines may have been replaced, but again, it may have, if there's a galvanized line in your home, that may have been knocked, just the vibration, something physically banged up. And if the vibration of working on pipes somewhere else in the system can knock a little, some of that, the little shards of galvanized steel loose, which may affect then the water quality that you have. Or it could be out of the city main, frankly. As I said, we don't know all the potential sources of lead yet. We're going to try and find them. So until we know for certain, I'm assuming that the city main could be one of those sources. I don't think it is, but we'll make that assumption. So that's why you got to flush your water for 15 minutes from all taps. We're telling the contractor to do that as well before the day leave. Did I miss anything, Dick? Dick says no. All right, so I guess I'll take your questions now.
General,
Jamie.
just the one other thing to add on to that would be the importance of making sure that they're using a filter ever more
Yes.
so.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
2 points that I missed that Jamie Lee triggered. First is keep using your filter, at least until we can say there's some sort of all clear at all levels of government, and that we're all in agreement on that. Again, because we don't know that we found all the potential sources of lead yet. Until we do, I want you to keep using that filter. And secondly, what I forgot to mention is there will be somebody, either from one of the universities, U of M or Wayne State, who's going to come out and sample your water ahead of time. And then within 72 hours, 3 days ahead of time, and then about 72 hours afterwards. I want to see if the quality of the water is increasing, is getting better. If we're doing this, I mean, we've got to justify that this is the best way to spend these finite amount of funds that we have, that we need to do it for service lines. So I want to assure that this is the best way. And if we show that the water is increasing in quality, then obviously we're doing the right thing. I will say that we did that with the 33 lines, and it did show an increase in water quality. We did 33, of the 33, 27 immediately showed an increase in water quality. The ones that did not actually had a little spike in the amount of lead. I go, uh-oh, this isn't good. But what happened is when we went out and sampled it again, a couple months later, the water quality was way down and was good. What happened was, as I said, those were homes, I think, where it had knocked something loose and it wasn't flushed enough, so that you had just a temporary spike in lead. So a really strong reason why you've got to flush it for 15 minutes and keep using your filter, as Jamie Lee said. Yes, ma'am? Not yet, but that's a good idea.